Pokemon Unite tier list, week 7, the Blastoise patch. Let's see what happens with the introduction of a new Pokemon and if previous balance changes have taken just a little bit of time to set in. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts down below. Now, I'm really excited for the beginning of this video because we get to talk about the true impact of Blastoise being added into the game. Slowbro is no longer a character. There is no reason to pick Slowbro because the only thing Slowbro had going for it was Surf. Now, I considered Slowbro a bottom tier character before the Surf nerf. So Surf got nerfed, Blastoise has Surf, and now there is just no reason to pick Slowbro. It's also a tank, but Blastoise just does a lot of things better, also does a lot more damage. Pretty much the reason why Slowbro is bad is your laning is horrendous until you become level 4, but you're already like getting yourself a half level or a level behind, so then when you evolve into Slowbro, it's not great, and you just stay behind for the rest of the game, and pretty much you can just completely ignore Slowbro in fights, and then everything's gonna be okay. Like, cool, it gets a couple of knockups with Surf, but after that, Slowbro doesn't matter. You just go and KO them. Blastoise, though, is a big threat. Now, a weird thing about Blastoise is that it completely invalidates Venusaur. So if we take a look at Petal Dance, well, Water Spout Rapid Spin is just going to be more damage, and Blastoise is a tank, so it's able to reliably do that damage. Venusaur needs Giga Drain, and even with Shell Bell healing, like, it's still going to get destroyed in fights. Blastoise is super tanky, so that doesn't become a problem. Now, you might be thinking, well, at least Venusaur has Solar Beam. Here's a cool thing, Pokemon Unite DB has actually updated with damage numbers for Pokemon. So we have the scaling on attack or special attack, we have the base damage, and then we also have the level scaling. Well, Solar Beam damage is very comparable to Hydro Pump. Hydro Pump is like slightly less damage, but then at level 11, Hydro Pump actually gets buffed to having more damage than Solar Beam. We have 1200 base damage at almost 200% scaling with 30 damage per level compared to Venusaur's 1150 base damage with 135 scaling and then 25 damage per level. So yeah, I guess like Venusaur is going to have a higher like special attack stat, but as we see, the special attack scaling isn't even that crazy. So at level 13, you get the cooldown reduction, which can be pretty significant, but I mean, this comes online at level 11. So while the specific numbers might lean Venusaur, Blastoise is still doing a crazy amount of damage, also because it's a tank and it's getting in there and it has crowd control, it's easier to go into Torrent, stay in Torrent, and then get the full amount of damage. Venusaur has a pretty tricky time using its long range, wanting to stay out of fights, its low durability, and then getting into Torrent, or not Torrent, that's going to be the Overgrow, and then also trying to get off all of its damage with cooldowns and stuff. Blastoise is just a lot better when it comes to how its kit interacts and stuff. And also, Sludge Bomb is not that great of damage, but Surf, pretty crazy damage, and it's also crowd control, and it combos into Hydro Pump really well. So yeah, there's really no reason to be picking Venusaur. Also, when it comes to the stats and damage numbers, I'm planning on doing a video closer to the mobile release. That way more people are interested in Pokemon Unite and interested in this information. But it's just good to know right now that Pokemon Unite DB is, or just unite-db.com, is starting to really put these numbers down, and we're getting a little bit better understanding as to how damage works in Pokemon Unite. So here's why, man, that actually took a while, but now we explained everything about Blastoise, so we should be able to transition the rest of the tier list pretty easily now. But that's why it means like Slowbro, no reason to pick it, Venusaur, no reason to pick it, and because of that, here's something fun you can do on Tier Maker. You delete the row, those Pokemon are just gone. And that's it. Like, they just don't exist. They don't belong, like, there's no reason to pick them because of Blastoise. Now, if there's already a Blastoise on your team, and you're like, oh, what about, like, Blastoise and then Venusaur, or Blastoise and Slowbro? No, there's no reason to pick Venusaur or Slowbro. They are bad. They are a free loss. If anyone says otherwise, especially now that Blastoise is out, don't listen to them. They're bad at the game. They have no idea what they're talking about. And if you still think there's viability to this Pokemon, I don't want to be insulting, but man, you need better game sense. Because, like, I just explained why. Blastoise just outclasses both of those Pokemon, and that's why you shouldn't be picking them, because on top of that, there's always just better picks to make in general, so that's where we can go with the rest of the tier list. Now, compared to kinda last week-ish, like, I did the Blissey tier list late in week 5, skipped week 6 because we were waiting on Blastoise, so now we're in that week 7 tier list. I think that's how all of the time frames line up. Not really too much has changed, but we can talk about what's going on with the Pokemon. So Talonflame still C tier, Charizard still C tier. The buffs made Charizard viable, but still not a great pick. And it can still, like, it's just that, like, Charizard just is not as effective as other level up evolving starter Pokemon and other, like, carries and auto attack based Pokemon. It's just that there's a much better pick in a lot of situations. Go Greninja, go Lucario. Blastoise, because it's like a tank damage carry now, is also a pretty viable pick. Talonflame, I keep saying it, Talonflame has strengths, just not in this meta, just not in the current game state. If Dreadnought and Zapdos pressure, like mostly Zapdos. If Zapdos pressure isn't as crazy, like if Zapdos gets nerfed, if the late game gets like a lot of changes or something and how scoring is prioritized, then yes, Talonflame is a lot better because now you have a hyper-mobile Pokemon that can make backdoors, that can make quick little scores while other little fights and skirmishes are breaking out, and then also get a 100 dunk in the last 2 minutes. But now if it does that, it's throwing because it isn't at Zapdos, your team loses Zapdos, and then that 100 points doesn't save the game because Zapdos is worth 500. And the problem with Talonflame is like it gets into a fight and then it just gets immediately destroyed. Like you have a lot of AoE, you have a lot of damage. You come in there on a Fly, you come in there on the Brave Bird, you come in there on all the other moves that's got, and you do crazy damage. But then you immediately die, and it just doesn't really have a place in how the fights are breaking down. Because, like, it can't engage the fight or else it gets blown up before it does too much damage. And then if you're waiting till, like, all the enemies are below a third health to try to get some, like, execution damage, it was a 4v5 for too long, and now it's, like, a 4v4 or something, or you're not going to have enough impact. Problem is, Talonflame just doesn't work with what the game is about right now. So, it's still, like, yeah, it's still whatever. It's pretty much, don't pick these 4 Pokemon. Don't pick Charizard, don't pick Slowbro, don't pick Venusaur, don't pick Talonflame, and you will win more games. Now we can go back to B tier. So, Absol is good. Like, it ganks, it does damage. Problem is, it is RNG reliant. And it's mostly like level 30 Scope Lens reliant because that 2% crit can make or break your game. The problem with Absol is that RNG. You either gank, get the crit, and then snowball insanely, or you gank, don't get any crits. I don't even know if that's good or bad luck because we don't really know like the crit coefficient and chances in the early game and stuff. But if you gank, you don't get any crits and then they get away, well now you're behind. And if in that next fight you don't get any other good crits, you just get blown up and you don't have any impact in the team fight, and now you never come back in the game. So that's like the problem with Absol. Very coin flippy, and it also has like the Talonflame team fight issues that it's not real. Like there's so much mobility in the game, there's so much like weirdness and crowd control towards like Absol doesn't get to pick one person, single them out in the back of a team fight, and then just remove them for free most of the time. Like sometimes that does happen, but then like in just a neutral RNG landscape, or also if like there's just a very front to back team fight, Absol doesn't find the ability to get in there, really tear it up, and then like have impact on the rest of the team fight. It's mostly just a very pick-oriented Pokemon, but the game is too Death Ball focused around Dreadnought, Zapdos, and has like a lot of just straightforward Pokemon, like wild Pokemon timings and scoring and things going on. So it's like Absol isn't, like much like Talonflame, isn't the right kind of speedster for the way the game is now, but still just stronger, and it can just like RNG crit and then snowball, and then there's not much you can do about it. So weird Pokemon right there. Pikachu, I honestly think Pikachu needs a buff. Like I've said, I say this like almost every tier list, if not every tier list. I played in the beta. I know what S tier Pikachu is. Pikachu in its current state, even if you think it's strong, even if you think it needs a nerf, it's nowhere near where it was, and it needs a buff. I feel like Pikachu should be A tier, and it being like the artillery mage with CC and like crazy damage and the ability to go more single target or AoE, like it's a really cool Pokemon, but right now it's just being outclassed by bruisers, tanks, all the other damage in the game, and it's also really squishy. So I don't know what saves Pikachu except for like more damage to keep people off them, or just like kill things as it gets jumped on. As it stands right now, Pikachu's good. Like Pikachu is a better pick than the other 4 Pokemon I talked about, and yeah, it's alright. But there are just stronger Pokemon right now, but it's alright. Eldegoss, Blissey outclassing Eldegoss. Helping Hand is way too crazy. Also the spam healing, pretty strong. Eldegoss, because like the nerfs and buffs and tuning, can like go more damagey sets and more like supportive sets on the Knock Up and Leaf Tornado, but then you're not supporting, and then Blissey's just crazy. And Buddy Barrier also just like makes it to where if you have 5 Buddy Barriers on the team, the healing from Eldegoss and all of its individual support doesn't matter as much. So it's like, yeah, it's B tier. It does a little better in coordinated play, but I think people still overweight Eldegoss, much like the Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff can be oppressive in the early game just through like its passives and its sing and stuff, but it finds itself, like, it just drops off way too hard. Like, Wigglypuff just falls off a cliff right around the time of Zapdos, or right around the time before Zapdos, to where it's like, okay, it can like crowd control people, but by then there's already like stats, there's already like upgraded abilities coming online, so Wigglytuff can be kind of annoying, but it's not game-changing annoying, or it's not game-changing on the Unite move, or Disruption, or Damage, or Follow-Up, or anything like that. So it can get you ahead, but then it doesn't like do enough in the late game, and it can really fall off. I think people might value Wigglytuff higher because it's a pub stomper, and it's really good at like catching people out, but if you don't miss position, you respect Wigglytuff more than you should, you don't really die to it, so then it doesn't get to get ahead and like keep that snowballing pressure on, which also kind of levels out the way that it just drops off in the late game. Like, you let it beat you up a little bit in the early game, and then it just doesn't do anything later. And like I said, like, Zapdos is the game, so the Pokemon that, like, don't do as crazy in the mid and late game, they're not really that strong, and that creates a lot of problems. So yeah, Wigglytuff, B tier, maybe B+, like at the top of B tier, to make people happy, because it can do some crazy things. Next up, we have Gardevoir, Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime mains, you guys are S tier. But, like, overall, Mr. Mime just, like, A tier. Mostly because of the Unite move. At the very least, Mr. Mime just has the best Unite move in the game. Shuts down the entire team fight. Just does absurd things. He comes out of that. He stuns someone with a confusion. That's all their health. Like, he's gonna get KOs. Mr. Mime gets, like, 1 to 2 KOs and then stuns everyone, which just opens up crazy possibility. Also, the barrier or the guard swap or the confusion, it just does nasty things. Gardevoir, when played perfectly, is like S tier, but it can just get collapsed on by way too many Pokemon. There's crazy amounts of mobility. Also, if it misses any moves, then it starts to go downhill really fast. You know, missing a Psyshock, that's a huge chunk of damage, especially with the scaling damage of the upgrade Psyshock. And if you miss a Future Sight, well, then you don't exist as a character for a couple of seconds, and that could be the fight. However, if Gardevoir lands everything, then yeah, it's just ludicrous amounts of damage, but it's impossible to play perfect. Therefore, it's just like strong A tier. And also your laning is super duper weak, and there's not really like too many Pokemon you can lane with, so it also affects your team composition or like lane assignments to like get Gardevoir to the later game, and that also kind of knocks it down a little bit. But then eventually Gardevoir gets there, it's crazy, and at the very least Gardevoir does something. That Moonblast stun is a very long range, and then you can follow that up with at least 1 or 2 hits on 1 or 2 Pokemon, so you get to do something. But again, like, the variance on the Pokemon and the impossibility to always be perfect is, I think, what just keeps it in A tier, but still a very strong Pokemon. But that's also like what separates A+ tier and S tier. These are the free, easy Pokemon. You run at people, they get destroyed as long as you have good skill and game sense. They do crazy things easier or more reliably, and that's what makes them better. So Snorlax is still A+ tier. I don't even notice the block nerf on the stun duration that much. Like, yeah, that didn't really get nerfed too much. Heavy Slam really wasn't for damage. Still incredible amounts of disruption, and they need to nerf tackle. Like, the only thing that can knock Snorlax from A+ tier is a nerf to tackle, because you get too many secures. You have too much early landing pressure, and then it becomes Heavy Slam, and then you're just set. Also, Rest makes it to where you can kind of get bailed out of anything, especially with Focus Band, which you should be running. So yeah, Snorlax, its early game is ridiculous, and then it has enough crowd control to just be strong throughout the rest of the game. And that brings us to Blastoise. Now, I feel like it could be easy, especially so early on in Blastoise's existence, to be like, yo, Blastoise is new, it's so broken, it's ridiculous, it's insane, it's better than Snorlax, it's the best tank in the game, Blastoise is S tier. But after playing Blastoise for a day, it kind of feels like that. And I think that people are only going to get better with Blastoise, and that's what makes things kind of weird. Because, as I talked about, it has more damage than carry Pokemon while also being very tanky, and that's really it. Like, once you unlock mastering playing around Torrent, you're just, like, doing 50% or more. Like, you're one-shotting people, or, like, you're one-comboing people, and then you're just taking out entire teams. Like, you you just walk up to a team while you're tanky. So then you drop below half health as they're like throwing things at you, but you're tanky so you survive. So then you get in range of Surf, which is now Torrent activated. You jump off the Surf behind them, you Hydro Pump them into your team, but because of Torrent, Surf, Hydro Pump, the enemy team, or however many people you caught out with that, with 2 instances of displacement hard crowd control, they lost like half their health. Like, they're hurt. They're going to get picked off by anything at that point. And then if they try to run back into you, you use your Night Move. And then your Night Move also buys you incredible amounts of space at Zapdos. You can use Surf and Hydro Pump for Zapdos and Dreadnought Secures. And then you do as much damage as attackers. That sounds like an S tier Pokemon to me. At the very least, it's A+ in the current state. Like I said, I think people are just going to get better with it, because even with like Rapid Spin, Water Spout, you just run at people and they can't really do anything about it. And then with the Surf, since you are unstoppable while using Surf, they can't do anything about it. You're a tank that gets to get away with so much. Like, its damage needs to come down a lot before like I start considering anything else. But the way I see it is, like, if you think Snorlax is A tier, Blastoise is A+ tier. If you think Snorlax is A+ tier, Blastoise is S tier. That's how this one breaks down. Other A tier Pokemon, Gengar. I don't think people are playing enough Gengar. Like, there's a lot of Greninja in the jungle because Greninja is A+ tier. Lucario is A+. I think Lucario's starting to feel more S-y to me too. Especially, like, I've been seeing less Power Punch. Power Punch is not it. If you're running a Power Punch Lucario, that's like somewhere between A and A+. Like, that's the bottom of A+ tier is Power Up Punch Lucario. Extreme Speed Lucario is S tier. And then once you master landing with Lucario, it also gets pretty wacky because, like, that level 3 fight, you just run at them, and the Steadfast is way too strong. The shield is way too fat, especially with, like, Focus Band activating and stuff. And your amount of damage is also crazy, and you have a knockup built into your auto attacks. Lucario just does stupid things, especially in the early game. Or you can just, like, quick attack through the Pokemon, Meteor Mash immediately. That gives you the Center Audino or Corphish secure. Then you use that to scale. And then when it comes to Vespiquen fight, you either kill them or you secure Vespiquen. Like, Lucario just gets to get away with whatever it wants. But again, like, Extreme Speed is the best moveset. Extreme Speed is the S tier. If you get that Extreme Speed chain off just right, and then the Bone Rush reset, and then you're bouncing around, like, you're doing way too much. And another reason why Extreme Speed is better than Power Punch is because of the Death Ball compositions and the grouping at Dreadnought and stuff. If they're grouped at Dreadnought because they have to be or else they're trolling, well, then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Bone Rush, 1, 2, like, depending on how many people you hit, and then you also just, like, use your last reset to hit as many people as possible. It's just too much damage. It's an unstoppable amount of damage. That's why I run full heal with it. People are like, well, your Power Punch upgrades and it becomes unstoppable. No, just go full heal Lucario, and then you're able to do whatever you want. Lucario's ridiculous. Like, I think, like, yeah, Lucario's kind of floated up to the S tier because, oh, it's just that Steadfast in that early game. Like, Lucario puts out too much pressure at all stages of the game. That's what makes it ridiculous. But yeah, as I was saying, a lot of jungle Greninja out there, but I think that, like, Gengar should be picked just a little bit more. Like, maybe Greninja is better than Gengar, but Gengar's still very viable. People might have gotten scared off too much by the Hex nerf, but, like, the Hex nerf dropped Gengar from S tier to A+. Also, don't run Dream Eater Shadow Ball. That's still not good. But, like, Gengar's still A+, and then you can still secure Zapdos and Dreadnought incredibly quickly, and if you get that good Sludge Bomb right before the Dreadnought fight, or as, like, all the other weird stuff is happening, like, you just get to do crazy AoE damage, you get a lot of KOs, Dreadnought secure, and then you win the game. So there's still that. Greninja, late game hyper carry, but also just pretty strong after, like, sometime in the mid game, you know? Even, like, that Frogadier gank at level 5 or something, not the greatest. You really need to evolve. So, like, once you become Greninja, then you're crazy. Then you just want to keep on the damage, and you're also really strong. Same thing with Cinderace. I still consider Cinderace better than Greninja. Both are A+ tier. That's it. Like I said, Garchomp's always been, like, A+ tier. The buffs didn't change that. It just made it to where people now look at Garchomp and realize how broken he's always been. Crustle, broken. Dweble's ridiculous. Like, Dwebble, you just get in there. Like, I've seen those level 3 Dwebbles, or like level 3 Dwebble. Like, they just do things. And then, like, if there's a KO out of nowhere, and there's a Rock Slide stun, and it still has the Sturdy passive, so it doesn't die. It's just ridiculous. So, confident Dwebble players becoming confident Crustle players, S tier. Kind of like Mr. Mime. Like, you know, God tier Mr. Mimes, or like God player Mr. Mimes, that's S tier. the right Crustle is like that can also master Dwebble and then get the secures and like find that early kill. That's an S tier, but overall still like an A+ character that does wacky things. Machamp is good. Blissey's still really good. Helping Hand, probably the best move in the game, just because that speed boost is unnecessary and giving everyone attack speed just does way too many wacky things, and then spam healing at a fight to where it's like, oh, you don't get pushed off Dreadnought, so you get to re-engage, or you just heal your Greninja or your Cinderace the entire time. Just stick with your Greninja or Cinderace, only heal them, and then you win the game. And then also using Helping Hand. So like, Blissey, like A+ tier with Synergy, A tier in like an anti-synergistic comp. Like, don't run Blissey with a Cramorant. Don't run Blissey with a Pikachu. You're gonna have bad time. Even Blissey with Charizard is kind of messy. Gardevoir as well. So if you have like long-range special attackers, which I know Charizard isn't, but I've just found Charizard to kind of be pretty messy with Blissey. So if you have long-range special attackers, don't pick the Blissey, or else it's just A tier. Maybe even A- at that point. But if you have brawlers, if you got a Lucario in there, if you got a Garchomp in there, if you got, like, especially Greninja with Cinderace, Machamp, Crustle Blissey is also insane. Like, as long as you have attackers, Blissey is A+ tier, and it's just crazy stuff. And then nothing changed from the last one. Ninetales, still one of the best characters in the game. I don't know if it is the best, it just seems to always be consistent and nasty, and even, like, Tank Ninetales is the highest damage character in most games, so pretty ridiculous. Every time I try to think Zeraora isn't S tier, I'm immediately proven wrong by getting absolutely bodied by Zeraora. That, like, it just ganks really strong, and then when it gets discharged, there's nothing you can do about it, and if it got like one gank that converted into a KO, it's going to be level 8 for Dreadnought, and you can't do anything about Dreadnought at that point, so Zeraora gets ridiculous. Cramorant still S tier as well, just because the amount of burst, the amount of crowd control, its Unite move, like, it's still crazy. So, not too much has changed from the list. Just Venusaur and Slowbro don't exist as Pokemon more. Everything else is the same, except Lucario has moved up to S tier, and I think that's just because, like, Lucario, like, when I compare Lucario to, like, Garchomp or Machamp, yeah, these Pokemon become ridiculous during their Unite moves and can, like, 1v5. But Lucario is always strong. Lucario always does nutty things. And I have said, like, Lucario's Unite move is what's holding it back from S tier. But, I mean, it just doesn't feel like that matters as much anymore. And maybe that's also a justification for Lucario being S tier in a weird way, because I put a lot of emphasis on Unite moves making or breaking a Pokemon. But if this is the one outlier where the Unite move does not break the Pokemon, then that means it's actually disgusting. So, Lucario, at the very least, is like A+ number 1. Can I like do this order on the fly on how I think, where does Garchomp go? Yeah, see, it's like, I think these are the 3 best A+ tier, and then like all of these guys are kind of the same and like just in the same boat, and also have like different things they want to do in different moments where they shine and crazy things they do. But yeah, like Lucario, best A+ tier. Blastoise has got to be S. Like, new Pokemon being overtuned, there should be no surprise there. So, needs to come down in damage, maybe even come down in durability, or also the stats off of Torrent, knock it into A tier. I think that'd be fair with what Blastoise can accomplish. And then S tier remained unchanged. I still fear really good Zeraora play. Cramorant's a god, and Ninetales has just always been ridiculous. The laning's too good, and then Aurora Veil just keeps it very relevant all stages of the game, and if it gets the right Unite move usage at Zapdos, that's a one fight, that's a one game, because Zapdos is the only thing that matters, and that's how you close things out. So, hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.